Welcome to the Code for Couples podcast, focusing on topics for law enforcement officers and couples to keep you and your relationship connected, resilient, and code for. Now, your host, law enforcement expert Cindy Doyle, author of Hold the Line and My Wife.
Hey there, welcome back to Code for Couples. I am your host, Cindy Doyle, law enforcement wife, now retired, author of Hold the Line, and a licensed professional counselor. Today, I have on Detective Jody Thompson, who reached out to me to share a story about how his personal crisis wound up unlocking the floodgate of memories for him from the job and the impact of that. Really quickly, Jody served over 16 years as a police officer in Clark County, Georgia, and was actually the county commissioner prior to that. He retired as a lieutenant. He currently works for a software company where he trains law enforcement officers as well, where he told me just a little while ago, he gets to work from home and makes way more money. He's also married to a law enforcement officer, and she works for the University of Georgia as a crime analyst. So Jody, thank you so much for coming on and wanting to share this story with us and the audience. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for the opportunity. It's very important for me to share stories like this so the new officers coming in can go, wait a minute, I need to take care of myself. Can't control the world.
Yeah, that's a lot of it. And that's what I was so struck by your story, in the sense that it seemed like things were tucked away and taken care of. And it wasn't until this situation that popped up that it really came tumbling out for you. So I appreciate that. Tell us a little bit about your career. I know you served as a detective. Tell us, what all did you witness or see?
Sure. So I, of course, started as an officer and I quickly went to investigations. It's a medium to small area. We had plenty of our problems. It is in a college town. So we often laughed that it was a drinking town.
The drinking town my niece went to. I know exactly where it is.
Yeah, it's a drinking town with a football problem is
Right.
how we usually described it. But it is quite a lot of fun there. I got to see a lot of things that most departments didn't. And considering the size and the geographical size of it, it was a lot. Went in, started as a detective, moved up in ranks all the way to lieutenant, where I was a supervisor over investigations, which meant that I got called out to even more stuff because you're on call even more.
Yeah.
And then in the last piece of my career, I went on to be the public information officer. Apparently I have a good voice and can talk to folks pretty easily. And you know what? Drew the short straw, but it was fun.
It's that political training up front that gave you
It was. That was interesting there. I ran for a county commissioner when I was 27. And at the time, I didn't know I was going to win. I didn't even really know what a county commissioner was. I just got tired of sitting complaining. And I'm like, I want to throw my name in the hat. And then I won. And I'm like, now what? Yeah. What do I do now? And that was a lot of fun. I remember the headline in the paper, Kid Commissioner has a Facebook page. I'm like, yes, I also have a MySpace page, which I've got some rock and music on there. It was just a very different world. And that was in a county right outside of Athens. So Athens is a little bit more with the times, and some of the surrounding counties are still in the 1950s. I did come from a small town, so very different, but it prepared me for law enforcement. It really did.
We have lots of those here in Texas where, just outside of Dallas, but you go like 45 minutes and you may drop back in time 20 years. So I get that. When you reached out to me, you shared a story about your wife and the complications that she had during labor. Why don't you go ahead and set the scene? Because that's really like that pivotal turning point for you where things changed.
Yes. So I really set the scene here. I had a very toxic marriage before what us law enforcement folks called the field training wife. And it was a little bit challenging. There were some dependency issues that she had that impacted us. So at the time when me and my current wife met, I was a single dad with 2 kids. So I have now a 24-year-old and a 20-year-old that came with the package. We were pre-assembled, batteries included. And so she basically walked into a family. When me and my wife met, it was one of those love at first sight things. We just looked across the room at each other. At first, I'm like, all right, beautiful woman looking at me. And I immediately turned my head to see what she was looking at. But It was actually
Aw.
me this time. That's what every man should do. If a pretty girl looks at you, look behind you because it's probably something else. But it was me. We both locked eyes and it was just love at first sight. So she had told me in her previous marriage that they tried for years to have a baby. And she said, "Hey, you want a kid?" I'm like, "I've got two right here if you want one. I got a girl and a boy, pick one." And this was like 7 years ago. I was like, sure, why not? Sounds like a great idea. Mostly the trying part. That was what I was looking forward to. But
Yeah.
she said that they had went through a lot of different therapies and fertility, but never could conceive, just never could do it.
Yeah.
And I was like, we'll try. And 2 months later, she was pregnant and everything was like, wow, this is really cool because we must really connect on some
I
celestial
must have good
level.
swimmers. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something must be rock and rolling here. But yeah, unfortunately, after one of the tests, I learned a lot about genetics and what a trisomy 13 was, which is, for lack of better terms, a genetic malfunction in the DNA and the baby didn't
Mm.
survive. So
Oh.
what started as a miracle event, which it still was, because she couldn't get pregnant before, then suddenly she could, we lost her like instantly. So we named her
Mm.
Mercy and tried to let go of her. It was traumatic. I was still at the police department then. She was at the police department. You'd handle it as well as you can. After a little bit of grieving and recovery, we went down the IVF route and said, I'm not a spring chicken at this point. I'm in my early 40s. I'm like, I got to make the next one count. So we went IVF where you can look at the genetics and make sure it's okay. And we got 19 eggs and I think it was 4 embryos. And first one went in, miscarriage. Second went in, miscarriage. Third one went in, not sticky. Apparently embryos have to be sticky. It didn't stay in there. And then the fourth was a miscarriage. So we went back and did another egg recovery. This time we only got 11 and 2 embryos. And so I remember the day she came out of the bathroom. She's like, oh my God, I'm positive. I'm like, positive? She's like, for COVID. I'm like, oh, come on, really?
Ah.
But actually she was pregnant and COVID. So I was like, maybe that helped. I don't know. Who knows what happened?
Who knows? Yeah.
Yeah, actually like a really good pregnancy. We did all the right things. Again, I've already had a couple, so I've got a little bit of training in this. And we get all the way to labor and it seemingly seems pretty good. The little dudes, I'm not coming out. And he was holding on. They're like, listen, C-section is the only option. And we're like, hey, that's safe, right? They've been doing it for literally hundreds of years. C-section goes in our way. I'm in the surgery room and they're like, hey, you got a little boy and he's peeing all over the nurses, things that little boys do. And then it's like the switch went on in that surgery room and everybody just flocked in there. Like the staff doubled instantly. I'm like, well, what's going on? They're like, we want you to show her the baby, let her know everything's okay, but we got to get you out of here. I'm like, listen, I've been a cop for a little while. I know something's up. All right. I've been in
My
a lot
spidey
of
senses are going off. Yeah,
I must be.
absolutely.
I'm bouncing off the walls at that point. They're like, look, she's hemorrhaging, but we got it under control. No problem. I'm like, okay, you're the experts, right?
Mm.
Like the baby out. I'm like in a rocking chair waiting. They bring her out. She's awake. And then it's just, started going hell. And I'm like, something isn't up here. And then she starts going into convulsions, right? So I'm holding the baby. We've already been there for 12, 13 hours, no sleep. Holding the baby. I'm like, hey guys, listen, she's bleeding out. And no lie, one of the nurses said, she's just having a seizure. And I was like,
Oh.
still not good. But I said, she's bleeding out. And you want to know how I know that? Because I've literally had people die in front of me so many times. I worked so many gunshots and knife wounds. I've seen people bleed out. I said, she's bleeding out and she's bleeding out fast. And now she's having convulsions from lack of blood. One of the doctors came in and said, oh my God, he's right. I'm like, yes, I have some experience on watching people die. Thank you very much. I didn't want to watch my wife die.
Right.
So they got the stat team in there, said, yeah, she's hemorrhaging, took them forever to find a vein. This was like life and death. She was like gone. And I'm like, I was losing it. I'm holding this little beautiful boy. And I'm like, this isn't right because we had lost so many babies. And then we finally get the perfect baby. And this kid is
losing her.
Cute. And then I'm losing my wife. I'm like, this is crazy. So they took her into surgery. At the end of the day, they were like, listen, she's lost 26 liters of blood. And that's what they charged us. So I'm assuming that's what they did. We got the bill for like $300,000. The insurance took care of it. Thank you. But they're like, yeah, we almost lost her multiple times and she's intubated. She's in ICU. It's going to be several days before you're going to be able to see her and the baby. She's not going to know you're there. And I'm like,
Wow.
that is knucking futs. Very stressful. We get through that process. I got the baby up there, get her out of ICU, good recovery. And it's like we get home, we get settled. One of probably the first 4 or 5 nights home, I start having nightmares.
Mm.
Okay. But not nightmares about losing my wife. I start having nightmares about car accidents with fatalities that I worked 15 years ago coming back to me in like real time.
That must have been shocking.
It really was. It's like I couldn't even, and I've got a really good memory. That's probably one of the things people knew about me, like as a detective, was I remember everybody's face, everybody's name, like the smallest details. It's just one of my talents, right? One of my natural gifts was memory. And these are things that I had really processed out of the whole thing. And this became a cycle of every night about 2 a.m. I would lay down and I would just start thinking, and it would be accidents, shootings, just general dead bodies that you have to go out to, because as a detective and supervisor, you have to go to all of those. So I started reliving some of that, and it was really traumatic, really traumatic. And I just didn't understand. And we started going to therapy. We started getting our heads wrapped around this, and the opportunity to be the public information officer came up, and I was like, this is going to keep me out of the limelight. I'm not going to be digging around poking dead bodies with sticks. This is going to get me out. It helped a lot. It did, but I kept having the nightmares, even with therapy, talking through it. And finally, I realized I never got help early as a cop. I never talked about it. Me and my ex-wife never even talked, period, and much less talked about work or, how it is. Fortunately, having a wife in law enforcement, she knows. She understands. She came from California, from a very scary, very busy area, to Little Athens, Georgia. And so she knows the trauma. She understands. She was a dispatcher for many years. She was the first one on the phone. So she can process, understand it. And collectively, we were able to get through a lot of things as a couple. We've worked like murders together, which was the coolest thing. The 2 cop brains married each other and we're solving crimes out there. And now we're having to solve this problem. She's recovering physically and mentally. The postpartum depression is bad as is, but she had to have like full hysterectomy because the hematoma had spread so far around her body. So the hopes of having any other babies is gone. She's faced with the physical part with scarring, and it looks like they were playing hangman on her stomach. It just
immediate menopause that goes with that too.
So the hormones, everything, it's just been a roller coaster. And while we have a beautiful child who is the cutest guy, he also doesn't sleep. So he inherited my lack of sleep, and it's been very challenging. So as of today, I'm 49 years old. I've got a 24-year-old, a 20-year-old, and a almost 2-year-old. And I'm like, oh boy, that's a whole nother box of trouble right there. That's going to be a lot of fun. But anyway, I guess what I really want to just focus on though is if I could have went back in time and was able to articulate, talk about some of those things that I just stored away and I had no problem. Those things never affected me. The only call I remember ever affected me was someone that I knew personally had committed suicide. It was a good friend of mine. And of course I had to take that call. That's the one they sent me to, but you don't know till you get there. And that one kind of haunted me for a little while because I just saw the guy like 2 days earlier and we had a great conversation and then shoots himself. So you always have things like that, but I weathered those. I thought that I was overcoming those. I thought now I'm not. I left law enforcement 8 months ago and I still have nightmares about.
Let me go back just a little bit. So, the fact that some of what you went through, you already had multiple losses, personal losses, that if people have gone through a miscarriage, many times there's this miseducation that it doesn't impact the man at all. And you're saying, yeah, absolutely. It impacted me too. It impacted us as a couple going through multiple IVF situations, which is stressful. And then losing children along the way, pregnancies along the way. So there's a lot of pressure going into this pregnancy already. You're able to have your son, and then you're sitting there and see the situation with your wife, which then you diagnose. That wasn't lost on me, by the way. So then
Yeah,
you diagnosed that.
that was stressful for me sitting in that room going, am I
Yep.
the only person here who's ever seen someone die in a hospital?
It-
Maybe
it-
that's good. Maybe they did their job right on the other billion people they serve.
but maybe not this time. It was pivotal to me when you said, I've seen other people die. I know that this is what's going on. So it's there. That came up. That was stirred up. And then it's somebody who's super close to you. And what we know about trauma and compartmentalization is this idea of if I can stick it in a box because it's not really something that is mine, then maybe those boxes will stay up in the shelves. But the moment that it connects to something personal, many times it does come falling out of the closet.
Yeah, it's
And
like the whole bookshelf fell on me then.
yeah,
And I'll also add that I had to go through a handful of therapists who could understand the first responder side of it. When I
mm,
said I've seen a lot of people die, I remember the look on a therapist's face just staring at me going, that is not normal. I'm like, it is to us, especially in a busier jurisdiction. There's some cops who've worked 20 years and never worked like anything like that, never had to work a
mm,
murder or anything. It is what it is. But it took me a while to find therapists who really latched on to that. I did come across a couple, and you have to try these things out. Sometimes it isn't the right therapist for you. They have to really
right.
connect with you. But I just remember that deer in the headlights look like, wait a minute, how many people have you seen dead? I'm like, a lot.
Yeah.
One week we had fentanyl overdoses, and there was like dozens of people dead all over in various stages and places. And it's, yeah, I can't count. I lost count, but my nightmares are adding up very quickly. They're reminding me of how many I've seen, but
Yeah. And that was the second part that I was wondering. So you have a personal crisis, you almost lose her. You're watching that trigger. There you go. And then you said you went home and you didn't dream about her. You dreamed about everybody else or all the other scenes that you had been at. And I was just wondering for you, the cycle of stress that you were under at that point in time, or trauma, or how you moved through it, or looking back, if you're like, oh no, I was in shock, because not only did you almost lose your wife, but now you're having these dreams, which is interrupting your sleep. You
well,
have
the child interrupting your sleep. It's
that
the
I
only
was going to say,
you're
along with
about
the
the
newborn.
only sleep I got was like bad sleep and nightmarish things. And I didn't share it with my wife for a little while because she's recovering. She's in her own postpartum war right now, fighting against herself and her emotions. And I'm like, I can't burden her with this too.
Yeah.
And there was a while that I kept that kind of sealed up, and it does bite you. You start getting shorter, you start getting a little grumpier and a little bit more irritable. And next thing you know, you're locked into that toxic cop brain that you don't want to be in. And that's a real thing, by the way. That's when
How
guys
would
can,
you describe? I'm sorry, go ahead. Yeah. How would you
no,
describe?
so it's almost like a little antisocial, like a barrier type thing where you don't really have that many friends outside of work. You talk to your
Mhm.
people that you do work with, especially if you're working a lot and you find yourself covering yourself up with more work. So you don't have to interact with the people at home or your loved ones or anything else. And it's, oh, I'm making some money. This is good money. Dude, that cash is not going to replace those memories with your family. And that's the way it started feeling there for a little while. I was like, I just want to go to work. I just want to get out of this house. I'm trying to escape these things. And that wasn't healthy. It wasn't healthy at all. And I'm sitting here looking at 200 other officers in our department, most of the young guys coming up. I'm like, I wished I could just scoop you up and tell you this whole story and say, talk to somebody. I know you're a tough guy. I know if you're a tough girl, you can handle these things, but really, it's going to come back and bite you if you're not careful. You're going to lose a marriage. You're going to lose yourself. Luckily, I never fell into the alcohol or anything like that.
Mm.
Ex-wife drank plenty enough. It's my fault. I said, drink till I'm cute. And she just never stopped. I'm like, wait a minute. Eventually I got to get there, but I didn't. Bless her heart. She was also dealing with a cop that worked nights and dead bodies and get called out all hours of night. While I don't condone that, I can understand it now
Yeah.
looking back, because now I've embraced my trauma now and I understand it now. And being out of law enforcement for like almost 9 months now, 8, 9 months, has been life changing. I'm sleeping better. Of course, I work from home and I get paid better, but still, I'm not schlepping all that stuff on and carrying a gun. I've also gotten out of the news phases, trying to isolate myself from all the stuff that you see on TV that's anti-police and things like that. I'm trying to get out there. Now, I still teach police. I go all over the nation. I teach. I just got back from New York and talked to NYPD about cryptocurrency and terrorism and things like that, things that I've taken interest in and I've been instructing for a while. But it's like I walk in, I teach them, I give them all the gifts that I've attained over the years, all my knowledge, and I get out. And
Yeah.
I'm out there fighting the fight with them, but I'm trying to give them some equipment. So circle back to, why did I even contact you? I want to get my story out there.
Yeah. Let me even go back a little bit more. And you had said you had kept it from your wife because she was going through her own stuff. That is the kind thing to do. And you're like, hey, I'm going to put you first and let you heal. At what point in time did she notice, or did you share? What happened? How did that come about?
Oh, she noticed.
That's what I figured.
So-
That's why I said, like,
And
yeah.
full disclosure, she married a keeper. I do all the cooking, the cleaning, all the busy work stuff. And remember I said that officers, when they're going through the trauma, that they don't understand, but they're always taking on new tasks and new jobs, extra duty jobs to make extra money. But what they're doing is they're covering up any leaks to their armor, any
Yeah.
chinks in their armor. They were just sealing it up with extra work. I've always been Mr. Mom for my entire career as a husband, over 20 some years. I've always been the cooker and the cleaner and all of that. But you gotta stop. You've been washing dishes nonstop, clothes, everything. Yes, we're trying to make the house tip top shape for the baby, but dude, take a breath. You're just covering yourself up with too much. And it's right. And I think if I hadn't been married to a law enforcement wife or even law enforcement adjacent, I could have been going down that same path, and I would have 2 field training wives under my belt.
Yeah.
And I know eventually we'll get a little punch card where you get the next divorce for free or whatever, but I don't want to be one of those jobs.
Let's not do that.
Plenty of cop friends or acquaintances now that they're on their 4th or 5th marriage. I'm like, dude, I'm going to tell you, there's a common denominator here, and it is life. It might be you. I'm just saying. But
So eventually she calls you out. Y'all
yes.
have a conversation of some kind. And that's when the journey for, oh, hey, maybe I need to go talk to somebody in your journey to find a clinician to help with that. Got it. How did y'all deal with it as a couple? Because she's going through her own trauma, almost dying or dying and coming back, not having probably the birth experience she wanted, the grief as well. I had also thought for you, like all the what ifs, because cops use that as a way to keep themselves safe.
Scenario
Now,
building.
are we not just bringing up all the experiences, but also the what ifs? How did y'all work together to move through that as a couple?
That's a really good question. Being a soulmate couple, we are one of those couples that holds hands and has affection, and everybody looks at you and goes, I can't believe those people are kissing. So we're already one of those type couples. We're very connected. We can interpret each other's emotions very well. We don't have a lot of arguments at all, really. We actually went for almost 6 years with none. And then baby stress, almost dying, churns up some emotions. So we take more turns with a baby. We take more turns with having chores. She has her therapist, and we kind of bounce things back and forth a little bit too. And really, honestly, me leaving law enforcement has been one of the biggest healing pieces of this entire journey.
That had to have been a really difficult decision, though, for you.
Oh, yeah, it
What?
was.
How did you make that decision? Because part of what I hear when people leave law enforcement too is it's like this part, it's not failure, right? It's not failure to leave. You're choosing yourself in this. It's not failing at something. It's still a loss. So for you, how did you come to that decision?
I flipped a coin. No. Yeah, no, I'm not going to let chance do that. But I think I was just at the point with everything, the trauma, because this is right in the heart of when I'm grieving losing my wife that I didn't lose. And also, it was just a lot. And I'm like, I'm never going to escape these nightmares or this trauma unless I just cut off the source. And I wasn't looking for the job. The job found me. And I was like, you know what? Let's do it. Let's do it. We put up a dry erase board and put our pros and cons, and the whole family weighed in on it. And there were quite a few cons to it, aside from working from home and get paid better. But losing that law enforcement piece was hard. It was
Mhm.
hard to cut the ties. But fortunately for me, many years ago, I put a line in the sand and said, my name is Jody and I work in law enforcement. I am not Detective Thompson. I am whatever. I'm not that. It's not married together. I am not cop first, person later. I said, that's my job. It's not easy doing that. And it
No.
took a lot of practice to say, we are separate. And this is my job. I got to pull the plug, be the dad, be the husband at home. So that helped. But yes, I thought of cutting the toxic stuff out. And there's a lot of great people at my department. I love the place. Some of the politics and stuff eat you up, but the job of helping people and solving crimes, I love it. I miss it. But for me personally, going through the trauma of almost losing my wife, man, I'd rather just take
Yeah.
this cozy job where I have less stress. I'm off every weekend. I don't have to go in on the holidays. It's not on call. I don't have to work there in the football game.
You're cutting off the input is what I'm
Yes.
hearing too. One of the key pieces that I've heard along the way in doing interviews for several years now is that a key part is to say, I am Jody Thompson. I happen to be an investigator. I'm a detective, but that's my job. That's not how I
Right.
identify.
And it's hard.
And that's a key part.
I don't
And
know of any
so,
other jobs other than first responders that have that connection. It's the firefighters with all the stickers on the trucks. They can't let go. Us cops, we can't let go of it. We love Velcro. I don't know of any other jobs. If you're working at Trader Joe's or an insurance salesman, that is not the first thing you introduce yourself with. We don't, and actually most law enforcement probably doesn't lead with that now because
no, they say
the
they're city
station.
employees. I work for the
Right. Yeah.
city, right?
Yeah.
That's what my husband used to say. I
I
work for the
just,
city. Yeah,
but
I think part of that, I think, is the dopamine, the chemical aspect of what
yes,
happens in the brain and what gets
addictive,
conditioned in. And yes, absolutely, for sure.
very addictive.
You've mentioned a couple times the younger guys coming in is what you've said. What do you want them to know? What do you wish they would know about handling it differently that you didn't at the time?
Two things specifically for the younger crowd. One, the job is going to eat you alive and it's going to take you in small bites, death by a thousand cuts kind of thing. And you're
Mm.
never going to know it until it happens. Two is the new people coming in they are part of a generation that is very different from our generation. And every generation says that. My grandfather, "Oh, you don't know a day of hard work." You're right, Dad. I don't, or my grandfather. But this is a generation with less social skills. This is the digital generation, the texters, the emailers, the messengers. They don't have the same type of communication and social input and output as some of the other generations. Therefore, they're already at a loss. They're not going to be able to communicate when they need to communicate or be able to articulate that going out. So to the newer folks, look, you're going into a job that's going to haunt you for the rest of your life. Yes, there's some great things about helping people. I love saving victims and getting them out of bad situations of domestic violence and rape and sex crimes. I love doing that. But there's a cost, the pound of flesh kind of thing. There's a trade-off. And if you're already at a disadvantage in communication, ooh, it's tough already because you're putting on a uniform where you are going to be the tough guy, the one with no face, no emotion. People are going to yell at you and cuss at you, and you cannot break a smile or you'll be viral video. You have to maintain that persona, and it's going to be very difficult for that next generation. But yeah, whenever you have those bad calls, you got to deflate. You got to put it out there somewhere. And if, I guess, the new generation, maybe you want to journal it. Maybe you want to write it down. Maybe you want to talk about how you feel at the moment and reflect on that. Do something like that, maybe to collect your thoughts so you can look at it in the future and go, oh, look at that. This happened and I felt this way. It's okay. It's okay to take a breath. And I used to tell my new officers, like, if you ever work in those scenes, go home immediately and wash your uniform. I don't care if it's brand new or your clean uniform for the week, wash it. Because there is a smell that gets into that uniform. And even the memory of it is going to make that bad call come back. So you need to wash yourself away, let it go in addition to your uniform, because you might not smell it, but you smell it. Your brain is clicking on a different level and let it go. I even told them, tear the page out of their notebook, and you've already written the report, just tear the page out. That way you don't have to flip back to it. These are meaningful things that you have to do. And I want to go back to something with me and my wife. We had the conversation we said, the marriage that we had is over. We had to recreate our marriage from the trauma, from the having a child. Yeah, no, we had the rings on our fingers. We have the papers that say we're both in debt together. But there is a mental aspect of saying that chapter of the book has ended. This is the new chapter. Maybe it's not your marriage is over. Maybe that sounds a little too dramatic, but there's a piece of it that you have to move on with. And
there's a part of it that dies in a different way.
Yes.
That's how I describe it, is that in that there's part of it changes, it dies. I'll relate it to cop work in the sense that you can't go back to not knowing or not experiencing something, right? As a spouse, I can't go back to living in La La Land, which is where I was before my husband got into police work. I was like, land.
Perfect. Everybody's great.
You can't go back to it. And so in a way, there's an aspect that dies. So I think your wording is perfect. Yes.
Yeah. And that's the same thing with when I'm saying wash your uniform, tear the page out of the notebook. That's why I wanted to digress and go back to that it's very similar in your thinking. Sometimes you have to have that physical disconnect of something material to let it go. You have to wash that uniform, wash the dead away, that smell of the overdose victim, whatever, the grandma that you just went to her house and you got mothballs and dead person all over you. There is a funk that is there that you have to have a material disconnect from, and it works. I don't know why it works. I'm sure there's some brain stuff in there somewhere.
I can tell you why it works.
Yeah, that's a whole nother category there, Mr.
It closes the loop. That's what you're doing. You're describing behaviors that close the loop in a certain way.
Until I learned that skill. And now I say that, but yeah, I just talked about having several months of nightmares, but I didn't do that to begin with. It took me a while to learn these steps, and I didn't really always do them right. It was a lot of trial and error on things. And it wasn't because it was affecting me. It was because I was watching other people get affected. I saw officers come into the department and then leave, sometimes unexpectedly, because they failed themselves on that. They made bad decisions. Maybe they were an officer involved shooting or some traumatic event. They never recovered from it. It happens. And did we fail them as a department? Probably. Can we save somebody else? Maybe. It's that whole throw the starfish back thing. If you have all the starfish on the shore, you can throw one at a time. It's all you can do. You can't save them all.
It matters to that one.
That's right. That one.
That's the point of the starfish story.
Yeah. And there's different strategies for different people, but I can only say what worked for me. But I'll tell you what didn't work was bearing that weight for several months while my wife watched me fall into almost an oblivion mentally, because I didn't want to burden her with the burdens I had. And I was going through all this trauma, all these issues, and I didn't want to talk about it. I'm like, I literally went back to the point of when I was a cop and I wasn't listening to myself. Yeah. It's like you will fall back into those same ruts if you're not careful, because we do things that are familiar.
It's habits, right? Yeah.
That's the way the brain works. It's great.
Yes. Yes, it is. Your wife's still in law enforcement, and she is still a crime analyst. How do y'all do this different now, or how do you help her to do this different?
Fortunately, she's at the university, which, lucky for them, they don't have the types of crimes that we had at the county and where she was in California. The Lake and Riley murder was the big one that hit our area, and that was in her backyard. That was the first murder that the university had in 30 years. Where in the county, we had one the week before and one the week after. We're like, this is every day for us. She has a lot of stress with it and trying to readapt her approach to things, because she's a mom now and we're tired and we're stressed. Her hormones are on a roller coaster, and it's like the scream machine for me. It's the mind bender, and I'm there for her. We still purposely make contact with each other physically. We still hug each other. We still hold each other's hands. We watch The Office together at night to escape. That's our little 40-minute time for us, is we just sit in the bed, cuddle, and watch The Office. That's my happy place. That's her happy place. And we try to make these purposeful steps for that. And we still talk about her job. I make sure every day I ask her, how was your day? Tell me about your day. how can I help you? Is there anything you want to talk? And we do. We talk about issues that she's running into or crime stuff, and she still picks my brain on things. What would you do here? I'm like, blah, blah, blah. Or she'll show me a picture of somebody. I'm like, oh, I know that guy. I arrested him back in whatever. And so we're still, it's relevant. And she knows that she has a place to talk, and I give it to her.
Yeah. Yeah. It's keeping that door open and knowing that you don't want her to experience that. And I assume she still does the same for you when you are experiencing a hard moment.
She
So,
is. And luckily
yeah,
for me now, I have way less hard moments than I did working at a police
I'm
department.
so
There's
glad
so
for
many
that.
internal and external stresses that you deal with as a law enforcement officer that I didn't realize how bad it was until I got out looking in. And everybody's got a different perspective on it, but all of us have the trauma. We just process a little bit differently. So,
Yeah, you mentioned the death by 1,000 cuts, and I like to use the drops of poison
yes.
scenario.
Yes.
That it's because to me, that poison, your body can adapt and figure it out for a while, and then it doesn't. And before you know it, you're like, why am I feeling sick all the time? Or why am I doing this behavior?
Why is my
And
stomach this every time I eat cheese? I don't understand this. I'm getting
so,
older, but
yeah, it's so that impact is cumulative. And for you to realize, have that critical event during her labor, which tips you over and realize that, oh, wow, it was impacted. And I love your message for everybody else, like being able to, I'm going to call it closing that loop, but those little things like washing the uniform, washing it out, smelling something different, the idea of tearing the page out. I love that. So you don't have to go back and see that anymore. Take it, tear it out, throw it away. It's
exactly.
little things that are symbolic of closing. That doesn't mean that you're not going to be impacted. However, you're helping your brain to heal and to be more aware of when things are impacting you, taking care of them along the way.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
they don't have to like spit polish your shoes every day, but come back in refreshed, start on a new page, and because you never know what's going to happen next. And one minute you're answering an alarm call, and next minute you're going to death or a bad accident. You just never know. And that's the real big challenge for policing is you just don't know. And you might have a bad day. Nobody thought that Lake and Riley was going to be murdered while taking a run. They hadn't had a murder in
Right.
30 years. And then boom, it happened and the whole world changed. Literally perspectives on everything just shifted dramatically from one little event in a small little college town. And that poor officer who was the first one on scene is probably still wearing that pain today because how do you escape?
Exactly.
I don't know if I could wash my uniform enough to get that off.
Thank you for coming on and sharing this story. I know that people are going to listen to this and be impacted. And the legacy that you're leaving is that other people can hear this and know that they're not alone in what they're dealing with and take care of it along the way. Make sure you said another thing that you had said was make sure that you're communicating, talk to people, get it out, and make sure you have that resource along the way. I was planning to drop your LinkedIn contact in there. Is that a good way for people if they want to reach
Absolutely.
out and talk to you?
Absolutely. Anybody goes there will find out very quickly. I am not in law enforcement, but I still like to be there. I still teach a lot, and I'm one of those cryptocurrency instructors. So anybody who wants to know about Bitcoin and stuff, I have some stuff in there on that too. But no, I want to talk to people. I want to be heard. I want people to know that you're not alone. And
Right.
you might not even realize you're feeling alone, but you are. You got to get past it. You got to identify what's going wrong and work past it.
I knew you had a sense of humor, by the way, because when I looked at your LinkedIn profile, you said my day job or I forgot how you said that, like your day
Exactly how I
job.
did
And
it.
then on the side, I was like, oh, this guy's going to have a sense of humor.
Yeah.
I love that we can have humor around this, but then also talk seriously about the impact and what it is. Jody, thank you so much. I wish you and your wife the best in raising that little 2-year-old right now.
Oh, yes, we need it.
And as far in everything that you do. Guys, if you found this impactful, if you think, man, there is somebody that would benefit by hearing Jody's story and sharing it with them, that's how you pay me back. This is our way of giving back to the community. And I would love for you to share this with just one person. The more people that know about this podcast, the more people that can be impacted the more stories that get shared and more people come on and want to share their stories. You're probably on your device, so if you can give this a review, I would appreciate that too. Don't forget to check out all the links below. I will link in Jody's LinkedIn profile, but then also I'll drop a little freebie in there for you too. So make sure to share that along the way. Jody, again, thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Until next time, guys, y'all keep it Code 4. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for joining us. For more information about the podcast or Cindy, check out code4couples.com. All intellectual property rights owned by CRLD2 Ventures, LLC, are protected by the firm of 9mm, 45 ACP, 5.56mm, and 12 gauge.